Basic. He doesn't get involved in the day-to-day. And please, what you people forget, you know, I sympathize with many Kenyans. Even I'm building markets in my constituency now. I have to go to the ministry and lobby for it.
Okay.
Even when I'm doing water projects in my constituency
what is
now,
your responsibility?
I have to go to the ministry and why are you not complaining
no,
that I'm
just
going to lobby for water? I've gone to lobby for the ministry.
What is your responsibility as the Member of Parliament in terms of what the Constitution provides for you? Does it include you constructing roads and markets at your
I think that is again a hollow question. Very hollow. Very hollow. I've not said I construct, I lobby. Representation. What is representation? I must tell the people, the government, my people don't have this. I must walk in ministries and tell them, my people require road. My people require school. That's representation. Or you think representation is to sit in parliament and just take tea?
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. That is Kevin Osido, who is the Executive Director, of course, County Governor's Watch. Thank you so much for making time tonight, sir. Should we take this particular fund away from the members of the National Assembly and give it to the counties?
Thank you so much. The answer to that question is a yes and no answer. It is a no answer because right from the nomenclature, the terminology is NGCDF. So it refers to national government, not county government, constituency development fund. And if you look at, further to that is if you look at the Constitution of Kenya, 2010, Schedule 4, clearly prescribes functions that are supposed to be done by both national and county governments. And if you go further and look at, I think it's Section 8 of the NGCDF Act, it basically stipulates what roles or what functions that fund is supposed to administer or to implement. Now, whether taking it to national or to county government is neither here nor there, because if you deal with the functions, there is no mechanism for county governments to adjudicate or to administer functions that have been given to county governments. However, if you look at the good gentlemen, honorable members seated close to me here, they have been very calculative politically in terms of changing every time the conversations of NGCDF come up, they get into Bunge, they amend the law. And so when they amend the law, and this has been happening since 2003, they have an amendment for 2005, all the way to 2025 as we speak right now.
When they amend the law, who does it suit?
It suits them. Whereas, in as much as it even suits them, there is nowhere where that law refers to a member of parliament, National Assembly. And I'm even surprised that Mheshimiwa Nabii, who is my good friend, is even calling himself a patron. It's a name that he has given himself because that act there is nowhere an MP is mentioned. However, because of the functionality of what NGCDF does in the constituencies, based on how it has been structured, there's even a committee called NGCDF, Constituency Development Fund Committee at the constituency level. So the thinking of the common mwananchi, of us as Kenyans, based again on the history of CDF, is that this is a fund by a member of Parliament, National Assembly, because it is a constituency development fund. However, if you look at therefore the confusion between county governments and national government, is largely based on the politics of resources, and these resources are monies that governors a lot of times have to cry, quote unquote cry, to national government based on appropriations that are done by parliamentarians, specifically National Assembly, on the budget making process. What is it, Nabi? Or you want this?
Yes, I'll show you something.
So therefore, based on that particular concern, governors are of this opinion that they are probably being belittled. That why is it that when it comes to CDF, including functions that have been prescribed for county governments, like roads, there are roads that these wonderful honorable members, depending on where you stand on being honorable, they are building those roads that are actually meant for counties. There are classes, let me just finish. Okay. Classes of roads. There are things, for example, kiosks that you see parliamentarians administering over. When you get back to county governments, the concern around who built those kiosks, who is supposed to build those roads. So there's a confusion between CDF for the parliamentarians and the classification of roads by constitution and by law with regards to the budget and appropriations for county governments.
Okay.
And I could go over and over and over. Even up to, let me finish.
Allow him to finish.
With due respect, including even issues of bursaries. When you go to county governments, there is nowhere where counties are supposed to even engage in bursaries. Why? Because the Schedule 4 has given specific education functions to counties. So why even this matter of bursaries is coming up, you ask yourself why and based on what? You go back to CDF and the specification and classification of education insofar as CDF by the CDF Act is also very clear. And so if you go to Section 8, there are very clear things that are supposed to be done by CDF. All right. And also functions that are supposed to be done by
I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you. I want to cross over to the other side to where Ian Keitany is on standby. No, I'm going to come back to you a moment. Ian Keitany,
you don't allow a mistake to pass.
What do you have for us on the other side?
Brian, more interesting sentiments from both Honorable Wamumbi, Mr. Were, and Honorable Nabina Bwera. Now, with me here is Wakili Mburu Mashua. Very good evening to you, Wakili, and thank you very much for making time.
Good evening.
Thank you very much. With me as well is Mr. Dr. Gishana from Katiba Institute. And Wakili, allow me to begin with you, Dr. Gishana. Interesting sentiments from the two members of parliament seated, at the other studio. First of all, how do you react to, the sentiments of Honorable Nabina Bwera in regards to the CDF? Because he says the argument that CDF should be taken from members of National Assembly to, counties is very, very hollow.
Thanks a lot, Ian, for the opportunity to be able to weigh in on this very important conversation. Obviously, any member of the public watching Nabina Bwera and how emotive this conversation is, the first question that comes to your mind is, why so emotive? If you have absolutely no interest in this particular fund, why is it that these conversations about the NGCDF has been very emotive, especially from the National Assembly? And one of the things which he talks about, he says, I'm building markets in my constituency, and he says is also I'm providing water. And then he says that, these are national government functions, which is not true. And when you look at all the court decisions, which there have been over, 4 substantive court decisions, 2 high court decisions, a court of appeal decision, a Supreme Court decision, all of which come to the conclusion that NGCDF is unconstitutional. And the various grounds upon which all these courts and all these judges actually come to the conclusion that NGCDF is actually unconstitutional. And one of them is this issue of infringing on the constitutional division of functions between the national governments and county governments. Nabi talks about markets which he's building. What he doesn't understand is that markets actually fall squarely under the the part 2 of the 4th schedule as functions which county governments are actually supposed to undertake. And more specifically, I'll refer the Honorable Member of Parliament to a gazette notice by the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, which was gazetted mid-December last year, which specifically delineates functions insofar as the construction of markets is concerned. And you will see that when it comes to markets, the construction, management and control of markets, development of market infrastructure, among other things, are functions of county governments. So if he's defending NGCDF on the basis that he wants to construct markets and provide water, he's actually defending it on the basis that he wants to undertake county government functions. And 2, when they say that obviously I support Osido. Osido is one of us insofar as defending counties is concerned. But when Osido says that it's not possible to take away these funds and actually assign these particular funds to county governments for them to be able to perform functions, that there is no framework for it, that is a little bit inaccurate. A very clear reading of the Constitution, particularly Article 187 of the Constitution, provides for ways in which the 2 levels of government can be able to perform each other's functions. There is a very clear procedure for transfer of functions. And in fact, if Osido was to refer to the High Court decisions of September last year or the Supreme Court decisions of 2022, he will realize that one of the recommendations which the courts have made is that these functions can be performed by counties under Article 202 of the Constitution through either conditional grants or unconditional and unconditional grants, but after a process of transfer under Article 187.
Fair enough. Honorable Mumbi did attribute to, Kenyans wanting the CDF to be, remain with members of parliament. But just from the views of Kenyans that we had earlier on, in Mombasa, someone said MPs are using, CDF for their own political gains. Wakili, in Nakuru County, a member of the public said MPs are using it wrongly. And in fact, most of the people who are hired in the NGCDF committees across constituencies are close allies of members of parliament. Wakili, coming to you, the court ruled in September of 2024 that NGCDF is unconstitutional. Now, to begin with, Raila Odinga says that this NGCDF should be taken away from members of parliament and, be given to counties. To begin with, does he have a case?
I think Laila had a very strong case because this part made a lot of sense before we had the new constitution. We call it the 2010 constitution, which basically had the separation of powers. The MPs were given some assignment. They were told, you go to parliament, you do legislation, you do oversight of national government, you go and do representation. And the maker of this constitution, 2010 constitution, they created two levels of services. Number one, national government, and number two, county government. If the makers of the constitution had other roles for the MPs, they should have said it in the constitution. So you realize that the MPs want to become to do the work of the executive, and at the same time they are supposed to ensure that the oversight. So there is no way they want to actually control this fund. At the same time they are supposed to oversight. So for me, this is basically politics. And if MPs want to control money, they should either become governors, become presidents, because those are the only roles, institutions which are supposed to be doing the work of execution. The other issue we need to ask ourselves: what was the problem? Why was this fund created? Number one, you realize there was with the old constitution there was a man called Minister of Finance. He was controlled. He was saying what is to be done in Kisumu, in Mombasa, in Nyeri, in Meru, and all that. So, and of course, the Minister of Finance had to consult the President. So it was not that we need to have this fund so that if you do not support the government of the day, you're going to get funds for your constituency. Now that we got the constitution, we got the devolution, we need to have this rule done by the county government. The other issue, we have this problem in this country, everybody wants to control money. Okay. You realize women lepers, so they are saying that they have GAF. MCs, they also claim that they want to have money. Senators want to have money. So we ask ourselves, who is going to do the work of oversight? So basically for me, this money should not be touched. The MP, and they can tell you why they are fighting for this fund. They have a lot of control. They may not be doing direct, but they are controlling these committees at the grassroots. And there is a lot of actually corruption on the ground. So for me, MPs, whatever they are saying with the emotion, as my colleague has said, even issues of the market, the MPs, they are not supposed to be building markets. Let them go and oversight. There's a lot of money which we are losing in this country. So they cannot be wanting to have their cake and eat it at the same time.
Okay, fair enough. Because the biggest question is, the role of members of parliament is legislation, oversight, and representation. But then if they're patrons, and like Honorable Nabwera says, he's building markets, he's building schools, how then do they oversight the same work that they do? But before we continue the conversation, I just wanted Brian Amai to throw it to Brian Amai, because he'll be engaging the former governor of Nyandarua County, that is Honorable Francis Kimemia, in regards to whether this fund should be indeed given to counties or should it remain with members of parliament amid concerns about misappropriation of funds.
All right, so before we cross over to former Nyandarua Governor, that is Francis Kimemia, I want to give an opportunity to my panel here to respond to what has been said in the other studio with, where Ian Kitani is actually in. Let me start with you, Osido.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brian. I just wanted to probably indicate that it is very clear what counties are supposed to do.
Correct.
And what national governments what county governments are supposed to do and what the national government is supposed to do. As we speak right now, there is no mechanism, including of transfer, that my good friend and colleague Gishana is talking about. And therefore, the conflict of interest here is the fact that it is the parliamentarians that have to legislate a mechanism, and I'm really surprised right now that there is even a public participation drive now inviting members of public to make their voices count on CDF that is going to be legislated over by MPs. And you see now where the conflict stands. Okay. It is important that we begin to ask ourselves, how do we look at a collaborative engagement between national government and county governments. And I'm hoping that as we move on with this conversation, we will get to that. Number two, so that my colleagues can move on, is there is nowhere where that the NGCDF Act, the latest that we are talking about, I think is 2023, even mentions a member of parliament.
All right, I get your point.
Nabi calls himself a patron because he wants his people to imagine that he's the one bringing the money or taking money for CDF there. But the law, including the NGCDF Board Act, there is nowhere that it gives any responsibility to a member of parliament, either as a patron or whatever. The engagement with the fund is with the board. Two boards. One, national government, CDF board at the national level, and then the constituency development fund committees, who in fact elect their own chair.
Okay, I get your point.
They plan and submit these reports to the board at the national level for approval. Then the monies are sent to the constituency accounts. There is no, even in signing of checks, they don't even sign. Any check.
Nabi, 30 seconds.
Yes, three things. Number one, I want to correct the panelists on the other side plus the commentator the other side. I said I lobby for roads. I lobby for markets. That is what representation is all about. And it's not only that. Why haven't they complained that I've gone to KCB and it has come and built for me 4 schools? Why haven't they complained that using my network, I've gone to my former employer, Coca-Cola, they have come and done for me a school? Why can't you complain? All we are saying is this. You cannot assume that money meant for national government, you can wake up one morning and say it goes to county governments. Remember, under Article 1 of the Constitution, it says the sovereign power lies with the people. Now, if the people are happy that national government money can reach them through national government, NGCDF, who are you to say that you don't want that system to work? And yet the people themselves are saying, this is what we want. And by the way, people have never understood this. How did we come up with the NGCDF? Because people were feeling discriminated in development, in equity. Can I tell you something?
But we have devolution right now.
Bwana, you keep on going there. There are functions of national government which devolution cannot do. Devolution cannot build primary schools. Devolution cannot support tertiary education. You should know this.
Brian.
Please, road category C, counties have no capacity to build. Roads category B, my road from Tarbo to Sekhendu is category B. Which county government can build that road? So using what money?
Brian.
Using which law?
Brian,
30 seconds.
Yeah, Brian, I have seen Wakili.
Okay, I'll have to stop you there. Let me just cross over to former Governor Francis Kimemia before.
Oh, but I had the floor. The governor can wait. I had the floor.
Just a moment.
The former governor can wait.
Just a moment. Just a moment.
I have the floor. Let me make my sentiments. Then we'll cross over to the governor.
Allow me, kindly.
No.
Just allow me.
No. Brian, I will not allow you. Let me make just one point. Then we'll cross over to the governor.
Allow me to
No. You have had 3 people talking about one issue.
And I'm going to give you an opportunity. I will give you an opportunity. I will give you an opportunity.
No, let me make my point.
No, kindly.
The governor will make his point. Just let me make my point. I have had Wakili talk about devolution, and I welcome that debate. The best example of devolution is NGCDF. Show me one single county that is spending 50% of their budget on development. Show me. In this country, there is none.
Even 40.
Even there is no single county that is spending 50% of their budget on development. Much of the money they receive, they spend it on recurrent expenditure. Let me tell you, Brian, Wakili has said that what is the involvement of members of parliament on NGCDF? Very simple, oversight. We oversight a fund manager and the committee.
Yes.
A fund manager is an employee of a board which is under national treasury. So we oversight the executive. We have no role in that fund. We have no role. We have no single role
The
in
question
that
that
fund.
people are asking, why so much
mandate
defense
is
on
just
this
to oversight
if at all
on
you don't
behalf,
benefit from it?
on behalf, Brian, of the people of our constituencies.
To ensure that the right things are done.
To make sure that what the people have said is what is being done by the fund.
What would
So it's as
happen?
simple
What
as
would
that.
happen if counties became, had this particular role when it comes to managing this particular fund?
But it's impossible. It's impossible. I've heard Wakili say that the fund can be transferred to county. How? Under which
It's
law?
theoretical.
Under what law,
A
Brian?
law has to
It is
be put in
impossible.
place.
Yes.
A law has to be put in
Yeah,
place.
But
there is
Brian,
no
let-
law that
Brian,
can allow
let's
NGCDF
not
to be
engage
transferred to
in
county
theory.
governments
Let's not engage in theory.
and feelings.
Yes, let's not engage in theory. The
Yeah.
Constitution is very clear. It has assigned functions. The money of under NGCDF is for national functions. Under Article 187, which Wakili was speaking about there, it requires a framework. And please, that framework presupposes that one level of government must be willing
Yes.
to give out its function.
All right, I get your point. I want to cross over to former governor of Nyandarua, that is Francis Kimemia. Heshimiwa, if you can hear me, this conversation has members of parliament up in arms and a lot of debate in the political circles whether the NGCDF should actually be taken to the county governments. What's your take on this particular conversation?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this discussion, and I think the discussion should be what is in the national interest, and what is the practice in modern democracies in terms of accountability for public resources, because I hear the discussions, and it's very, very interesting discussions. The role of MPs in terms of representation, in terms of legislation and oversight, and of course the doctrine of separation of powers. Who does what? And I want to believe that by the time you stand for election, you're either standing for the MP seat or for the governor seat, and therefore the issue should not be personal. The issue should be what is in the best interest, the national interest of this country, so that we move in as a progressive democracy. We don't bring in caricatures of institutions that don't really work well or are in conflict with the existing constitution and the laws of the country. And then see, the issue is, how do we make sure that the shilling, every shilling in the country reaches the mwananchi at the grassroots? And I think that's where the issue is. The issue is in terms of accountability for public resources. If you look at the report of the Controller and Auditor General, or the auditor now, the coefficients of the utilization of the CDF budget, and I'm not saying that the counties are 100%. It's less than 40% in terms of the efficiency of utilization of CDF money, and I think this is where the issues we need to address, and where I think members of parliament can help this country is in oversight of not only the national government money, but also the county government money, how governors are utilizing resources, and also then the issue of synergy. How do we work together and make sure that the projects that the MPs would want to see implemented, even if they are sent to the counties as grants, or there's an MOU or a framework within cooperation and collaboration and partnership that is in the Constitution, how do we then ensure that there is equitable distribution of those resources for the projects they would want in the county, and then can those projects be put in the CIDP? And then after CIDP, then you want to ask yourself, is it possible that then the national government can be compelled to send over not only the resources but also the people and the equipment to make sure those projects are implemented in a much more feasible way? But I think the main challenge then, and where I want to come in strongly, is the issue of accountability framework. Is it possible to develop an innovative legislative framework that ensures that there is a county management framework where the governor sits, the senator sits, the MP sits, and then all the projects, including the county projects, are all put up in a framework of performance, in a performance management framework, and then performance contracts are done. It is clear these projects will be done in this constituency, in this ward, using the ward as a planning unit, and then coming up with even a revenue sharing formula for the county, because not all wards are equal. And so that we make sure that the money for the county and the money from national government is all implemented as effectively as possible. And I think that is where the issue is the money for the county, under the county government, and money under the CDF being utilized 100% for the benefit of our nation. And the answer is no. The answer is no. So I think this is where we should be, focusing ourselves into. But if you had that committee where the governor sits with, either co-chaired by whether the senator or the county commissioner, bring all those, including the registrar of the High Court, so that the three arms of government are represented in that committee, an overarching committee, legislated, and then their work is to make sure that all the projects are put into a performance contract. The results are very clear. The performers are very clear. Where there are no staff, the national government can send in staff. The ministers working closely with those county committees. Because I think, Mr. Chairman, unless we appreciate that we want to move this country to become competitive in the global market, not just competing because of CDF or governor's money, but unless we want to implement projects that make this country competitive in the international landscape or space, then we are not going anywhere. Arguing whether the money should be with the governor or with the MP, that is not the issue. The issue is how can we come up with an accountable framework that ensures a whole of government approach in the way we utilize resources, and that every shilling counts and every human being in the country, is accounted for. Right now, there's a lot of wastage, a lot of, theft of public resources, misuse. These are things that you can study in the auditors' reports, whether for the county government or national government. And I think this is where this country should be heading into, checking to ensure that public resources are utilized for the purposes for which they were intended for. And that's where the members of parliament can then come in and oversight and even create registrations to ensure that the projects for the constituencies are also in the CIDP and also being oversighted by that overarching committee that I've talked about, that brings in the three arms of government in one level. The way NSAC, the National Government Committees, on security and other issues are formulated. And it is us to come up with innovative institutions to manage public resources for the benefit of our people. And so that becomes the main focus of us as a national government. Then
all right, Governor Kimemia,
monitoring and evaluation systems.
I'll have to stop you there.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Governor Kimemia.
I think the main focus I wanted to talk about is where.
No, I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you
so that there's no conflict. Yes.
I will come back to you. I have to take a break here on the program. Of course, continue engaging us on our socials at K24 and Kameme TV across social media platforms. This is the People Dialogue. Our conversation is centered around the NGCDF debate that is currently hot in the country. We take a break. We will be back in a few.
Kameme TV, Muthegi Waruriri.
Vultures are gathering, Ladama.
With every bit that falls, power shifts.
I want them to feel the emptiness I feel.
All of our property and assets shall be left